You've said before, quote unquote, what I'm describing is military rule. That's a strong statement, Mike. What do you mean by that?
Well, it's bigger than that in the sense that, above the military are the corporate and financial stakeholders of the activity of the military. The military itself, is run by a sort of general class. And, in second or third world countries, we call them juntas. In the U.S., we simply call them, four stars or, the sort of Mark Milley class. But above that are the corporations and financial stakeholders who essentially provide the choice and the staffing of that. So the military is not necessarily where the money is. The reason you become a multimillionaire as a four-star general isn't because of your salary, while working for the military. It's the work that you do after that, when you go on to be an advisor or a member of the board and get a big equity share in Boeing or Raytheon or BAE Systems if you're in the UK. Michael Chertoff's a great example of this. He was the guy who was the first full-term DHS secretary here in the U.S. He's a guy who is another one of these godfather figures of the censorship industry. He was the functional head of the Aspen Institute's cyber working group, which was the sort of central command in many respects for censorship thought leadership. He's the guy who went on to become the interim head of the Disinformation Governance Board at the Department of Homeland Security. Well, what did he do after he left government under the Bush administration running DHS? He went to become the chairman of BAE Systems, which is UK's equivalent of Boeing, Raytheon, and Lockheed Martin combined. BAE functionally runs the British Ministry of Defense. And Chertoff also started a private sector group called the Chertoff Group, which does a lot of this geopolitical advisory group. And, one of the first people they picked up there was General Michael V. Hayden when he retired from being the head of the CIA, the head of the NSA, and being a four-star general for the U.S. government. So you have this rotating class between the military and the corporate and financial class. But, when I refer to military rule, it's because the military is essentially doing the dirty work of the corporate and financial class. They're essentially the executioners of the judicial edicts coming from that corporate and financial aspect of the blob. And the military does a lot more than just straight military. We have four theaters of war, and according to U.S. military doctrine, we've got the strategic, which is, the sort of grand strategy for how to win militarily. We have the tactical, which are the specific operations. The third category is something called logistical, which is everything from, our supply lines to our sort of production networks to actually running, the military equipment in order to support the tactics, in order to support the strategy. But the fourth category is something called political, which is the military's control over hearts and minds, because that is effectively the easiest and cheapest way to win a war is to induce a state of surrender in the political ecosystem of the country you're at war with, which is to get their own citizens and their own government to lose support for the war. And so their government at the civilian level, basically agrees to surrender or to put down arms or to reduce funding. This is how our military sees the reason we lost Vietnam, not at the strategic or the tactical, the logistical level, but because we lost political support at home and therefore lost funding and lost mandate for boots in the grounds. And so therefore effectively lost at the strategic and tactical and logistical level because we ran out of the mandate for the strategic. We lost the ability legally to do tactical strikes, and we lost the money to support the logistics. And so we lost the war because we lost the political. So after Vietnam, the U.S. military became monomaniacally obsessed with control over media and control over hearts and minds. There's the famous declaration from George Bush Sr. during the Gulf War in the 1990s, where he said, "By God, we've kicked Vietnam syndrome." And part of this was by doing all these favors for legacy media to make sure that pictures of kids coming home in body bags weren't on TV, and that CNN rode in the helicopters with them and were glorifying it rather than criticizing it. But the military has by far the largest budget of any federal government property. Most of our there's no other federal agency of the 17 or so federal agencies in the U.S. government who comes even within a fraction of the Pentagon. The Pentagon's civil affairs and their sort of hearts and minds operations dwarf anything of any other government equity. And, when the military moves into the media responds, immediately. I mean, so in the social media space, you had this NATO doctrine after the Crimea annexation in 2014. First, it was called the Gerasimov doctrine. Then it became hybrid warfare. And this was idea that war was now a hybrid of military and social media. You had Jens Stoltenberg declare the from tanks to tweets doctrine, which is this idea that NATO has to focus more on tweets than on tanks. Well, when that happens, how is Facebook going to protect its monopoly in the Philippines or in Southeast Asia or in Sub-Saharan Africa or in Latin America if they lose the support of the Pentagon and the State Department and the CIA? What happens if the African Union wants to, bring in some competitor from China that undermines the market share of Google there, or undercuts the market share of Facebook or of Twitter there? Well, if you don't have the protection of the battering ram of the blob, you lose your market all around the world. You become a tiny little island parked in the US rather than a big, bad multinational corporation. So these companies all are stacked in their trust and safety teams. These trust and safety teams are all dominated by people from the CIA, people from the Pentagon, people from the State Department, or people from an NGO swarm that's vetted by the foreign policy establishment. So when the Pentagon says, "Hey, we got this new hybrid warfare doctrine," your trust and safety teams, your content moderation teams are going to get rid of misinformation in this region, and we're going to, if we say something's Russian disinformation, it's yes, sir, may I please have another, not, hey, this is weird, the Pentagon's telling us to censor stuff.
Right. And with the Twitter files, it became very clear that there were these ex-CIA people all throughout that organization. And shocked me. I mean, I'm sure none of this shocked you, but a lot of people are like, what the hell are these people doing there? And I guess for you, you're like, this is business as usual across all these corporations. But I remember that for me was surprising. So Jim Rickards has just recorded a video that's not available to anyone in the public, and he's going to be talking about how this upcoming recession is going to be fast, it's going to be bloody, it's going to be nasty. But at the same time, he's going to show you how you can position yourself to profit from all of this chaos. Now, we've made this video only available to our viewers. Go to londonreal.tv/Jim. Watch that immediately. I can't say enough good things about Jim Rickards. He understands the global economic system better than any guest I've ever had on London Real. His predictions are almost uncannily true, and you can learn how to profit from his vision, from his expertise, and his understanding of economics. So go to londonreal.tv/Jim or click the link below. It's an excellent, excellent look on what's going to happen in the future and how you can position yourself to profit from that. Jim is one of the best in the business, one of my favorite guests on London Real, and he's very, very good at predicting the future and showing us all to profit from it. So click the link, and I hope you enjoy. The greedy bankers are about to do it again. In 2008, they crashed our financial system and nearly bankrupted the entire global economy. Then they received trillions of dollars in government bailouts. And after, they demanded fat bonuses paid for by you, the taxpayer.
It turns out the banks haven't just been screwing the American taxpayers, they're also screwing over their investors. Turns out the banking industry is the worst place you could put your money, despite enormous taxpayer bailouts.
Now the bankers are back to take away your financial freedom. They lie and tell you that cryptocurrency isn't safe. They try to make it illegal for you to choose how to invest your hard-earned money. They lie and say cryptocurrency is used by money launderers and criminals. But look at the record. It's the banks themselves that launder hundreds of billions of dollars every year to the biggest criminal operations in the world.
Leaked documents have revealed how some UK banks have helped criminals, money launderers and Russians under sanctions
American authorities discovered that the Sinaloa cartel moved $881 million through HSBC accounts as bank officials turned a blind eye to the illegality.
The bankers lie and say cryptocurrency is not a real investment. Meanwhile, the smartest CEOs in the world are buying billions and billions of it. The truth is that banks lie about cryptocurrency because it makes them scared. The banks take $9 trillion per year of your hard-earned money, and they are worried that they will finally be exposed. They're scared because crypto means they can no longer control your money, which means they can no longer control you. They are scared because you might actually understand your money and intelligently decide what to do with it. Now is the time for us to come together, fight back, and take control. It's time to educate ourselves, our families, and our communities. Because financial education means financial freedom. We know that cryptocurrencies will help us build the new decentralized financial system of the future. A banking system that is of the people, by the people, and for the people. A banking system where access to finance is a fundamental human right. A banking system that is free and fair and welcomes all humans on this earth. The DeFi revolution is happening. We, the people, can no longer be fooled. We choose to take control of our finances. We choose to take control of our freedom. We choose to take control of our future. Join us, and let's take back our financial freedom forever.